Spread your wings to the night. Observe as flames fill the sky. It's just your frame of mind. Strike the match. Ignite your life.
Welcome to my How to Build a PC build guide. This system is going to cost around $1,200 US, so it is not for the faint of heart. However, the components I've chosen were based on value. They were also based on performance. So let's get started. For CPU, I went with an FX 8320E from for motherboard, I'm using an MSI 970 gaming motherboard. The reason for that is, well, you really don't get a ton of choices when it comes to AMD, so that is what I went with. Next up is graphics cards. I'm using an Ace R7 370 gaming board from MSI. The reason for that is because it's extremely fast and affordable. For our power supply, we've gone with a Corsair CX850M. Now note, I don't ever recommend buying a semi-modular power supply. However, this is what I'm using today. CPU will be kept cooled with the Hyper 212 Vivo. Normally, I don't really like air coolers because this one is a kind of a pain to install. But that's what I'm going with because it's cheap. And last but not least, the elephant in the room, right here, the Cosmos 2 from Cooler Master. Pretty big case. It is not for the faint of heart. This case rolls in around $330 US. So it is very expensive, but I cannot stand small cases. Like they look dirty, they look horrid. I just can't stand them. I need to have a good case. Even though there's no window on it, well, I really don't care. So let's get started with our build. Start by installing the CPU and the Hyper 212 Evo. For CPU, note carefully there will be a golden triangle in the corner of the socket and the CPU. Match those up and carefully place the CPU into the socket. Do not ever bend it. You could break the pins or even damage the socket itself. To install the Hyper 212 Evo, you just remove the stock fan mounts. So obviously I pre-removed all of it prior to filming. But there would be two fan mounts here that you would remove and remove the stock backplate. Place the backplate in, followed by two nuts, then two springs, then four springs, and then screw it in. Crosswide pattern. Do not go 1, 1, 1. Crosswide pattern only. Once that's done, we're ready to mount the board. RAM installation can sometimes be complicated with two DIMMs. The reason for that is because you need to put them in individually. Like, you can't put them side by side. That is bad, and it can cause memory ripple. I don't know what it's called. I call it memory ripple, meaning if you don't put the RAM in correctly, your memory could freeze or become less efficient, causing programs to not run very quickly. That is what RAM does. The more RAM you have, the more applications will run faster. And that's how you put your RAM in. Now it's time to mount the board, but first we have to put on the I/O shield by aligning it and popping in the four corners Now, before we get started, there are a few things I want to do to the case before we do anything else. First, we're going to take off the top panel. Then we're going to remove both of the existing drive cages that are in the bottom. Don't worry, we're going to put those back in soon, but for now, to make building easier, we're going to remove those. And I think it will make building, again, we're not putting anything else down here. This is just an aesthetic issue. Another thing is these brass standoffs must be applied, because if you don't apply the standoffs, you could break the board or kill it. So, what we do is we place the board there and put 9 screws through the board into the back of the motherboard tray. We're almost in the final stretch with the build, guys. The next thing we're going to install is the power supply. Now, normally I don't recommend buying a semi-modular power supply because, well, especially in a case of this caliber, because there's a bracket at the back of the Cosmos 2 that we're going to remove, and we're going to install the power supply in it like this. Simply remove the power supply bracket by removing the 4 thumb screws, then sliding the power supply onto the bracket, and then screw it in, and screw the bracket back into the case. Like that. It's time for the end, particularly with the graphics card. This particular board supports two-way SLI and two-way Crossfire. However, we're not using SLI today or Crossfire. The funny one, what I like about twin Frozr cards is the PCB, the heat expels from here. Well, actually no, heat comes out the bottom, which is the traditional blower design. Certain twin Frozr cards have a special design where air comes in here and it pushes heat out the top. Not really sure if it quite works like that, however this is what I'm going with today. So we're going to start by aligning it with the two, I'm going to put it in the topmost slot. So you just slide it in like that, wait until it clicks into place, and then screw the thumb screws in, like that. So guys, we're finally done. We're finally done. Here it is in all her former glory. I have taken this thing apart and reassembled it just for you guys, just to see how easy it is to build a computer. However, as for this case goes, the reason I bought this case is because I actually plan to upgrade this case with far more components. For example, this RAM here, I actually plan to swap that out with a much higher capacity kit of RAM. This graphics card, I'm actually going to get the new GTX 1080 for that. This power supply will probably be switched out. The board I'm probably going to keep, as well as the CPU for now. And as for another thing, another reason I like this case is how modular and how supportive it is. You could fit, especially for the fan controllers. In fact, let me turn the system on just to show you. And that is the joy I get of spending $1,200 on a computer. So in a nutshell, as far as cooling goes, I actually do plan to replace all the fans in here. There's a fan here at the front that pulls air in, a fan at the top which pushes air out, this fan pushes air out, and these fans at the bottom pull air in. These are all compartmentalized. There's actually fan holes on the door that actually support 2 fans and will blow directly onto this section. So as far as fan placement and what I plan to replace, I would take out the rear fan, take out the top fan, remove the front fan, and remove these two fans. And I would place 3 on the top, 1 back here, another here. Yeah, you can actually put a fan here. 2 fans up in the front here. There's actually a fan that goes down there. And another, these 2 fans here would also be removed. Also, this CPU cooler would also go, and I'd also replace it with a Corsair H90, which would go right here on the back. And the reason I put an H90 is because I want the heat to, because due to the laws of physics, heat travels upwards. So these 3 fans would really help in dissipating all the heat. Although I don't really expect a GTX 1080 to get really hot, or really hot at all, as a matter of fact. I'd also switch out this power supply for something higher capacity, maybe a 1,000-watt power supply. Although, do I regret spending this much money on a case? The answer is no. I don't regret it. I do not regret it at all. In fact, I'd buy it again if I would. The reason I wanted this case is because I wanted to, I wanted something that would last a real long time. And this case will last a real long time. So in a nutshell, 3 fans on the top, 1 here, another here, 2 at the front, 2 on the side, 1 in the back. All the water cooling this you could possibly want. If I were to water cool this thing, which I might or might not, depending on if they ever made a block for the 1080. They don't make a block for this card, actually, which I'm kind of dull with. But if I were to do water cooling, I'd actually place a pump here. I don't know how I do water cooling, but this mechanism here can actually be removed. I actually have plans for all these hard drives. I don't plan to stay for AMD for long. But there are more on that in the future. I do have plans for these cages down here, which is why I didn't remove them. Like, people were probably thinking, well, what does he need with a 13 hard drive bays? I don't plan to put 13 hard drive bays in here, but I do plan to use those cages. So yeah, I'm very proud of this computer. I love it to death. It's my greatest accomplishment, and I hope you guys can learn what I've learned, or I can give you the knowledge to build your own computer, although I don't know you'd buy a case like this, but it's certainly much better than my old one. And another thing is how much damn quieter it is. This before this. And all the noise stays in there. Thank you guys very much for checking into my how to build a PC guide. I certainly love this computer and I'm very proud of it, and now I get to play video games. Well, I haven't played video games. See you next time.